Carl, are you still here? Okay.
I'll here.
Okay. This is our December monthly learning cafe. My name is Fanny Glover. I am the Director of Equity and Inclusion here at the Early Care and Learning Council, and to my right
is Mariah Heber, and I am the Programs and Services Associate.
And what we've been trying to do is to provide learning opportunities through these monthly learning cafes. And we've had some fabulous speakers, and today is no exception. One of the things that I just wanted to share with you before I introduce the speakers is that as we go throughout this hour, please, if you have any questions at all, you can unmute yourself and ask, providing you don't have a whole bunch of noise going on in the background, or you can just type your response or your question or your comment in the chat box. If you just wanted to keep it private, we can read the question and just send it directly to us, and that would be a private chat. But if you want everybody to see it, by all means, type and send it out to everyone. But when you send it to us privately, we will not mention your name. So just so you will know, there are no stupid questions, none whatsoever. And so the goal of this whole process is for us all to learn from each other. And we hope you keep that in mind. So if you have any questions, please ask them while the speakers are online. So a couple of other things before I read to you and introduce our speakers. We only want to mention a couple of ground rules for today, and that is if you have any questions and need some clarification, please ask. And the other one is please eliminate any distracting noises, just in case you decide to unmute your line and ask your question. We also would like for you to give yourself permission, not to feel shame, like I do not need to feel shame or guilt about what I know, but I do need to take responsibility for what I can do now. Trying to listen and learn as much as I can, testing my assumptions, assuming best intentions from others, operating under the premises of no shame, no blame, no guilt, striving to change any false or inaccurate attitudes, and learning what I can do to make a difference. With that being said, what we plan to do today is we're going to have our speakers, our first one, Carrie Braxton. She's going to bring all of her experiences around recruiting and hiring and retaining diverse employees. And a little bit about Carrie. She is the manager of equal employment opportunity at Dane County, which is in Madison, Wisconsin. She is responsible for equal opportunity and affirmative action activities. She's also responsible for tracking goal attainment, monitoring policies, serving on interview panels, reviewing hiring processes, investigating employee complaints, and facilitating training and workshops. She's a graduate of Upper Iowa University and Madison Area Technical College and holds master's and bachelor's degrees. She serves on various committees, commissions, and boards, such as the Dane County Equal Opportunity Commission and Racial Equity and Social Justice. We also have with us today Lois Cooper. She's the president. She is the president, she's the one that's waving. She is the president and CEO of Lois M. Cooper, Inc. She is credentialed as an associated certified coach by the International Coach Federation in 2016. She is certified in motive notation, the method for recording movement concepts in conflict resolution and violence prevention using movement. She is currently involved in an initiative to educate communities regarding diversity and inclusion through an organization named Raising Voices. She received her MBA from Baruch College in New York City and her BA from American University in Washington, D.C. I also, and she didn't mention this, and I won't mention the name of the organization, but she was vice president at a really large employment agency. She didn't mention that, but I did. That's how I met her. And what Lois will do today, she will share some of her own personal experiences. And what we need to keep in mind as we go through this process is how important it is to be strategic and intentional about our recruiting, hiring, and retention. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Carrie and Lois, and I think Carrie is going to kick it off. Carrie?
Okay. Hi, before I get started here, I just want to say thank you so much for having me here. I look forward to presenting with you guys, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And with that, fingers across, let's make this happen. Okay. So, share. Okay.
And then switch bottom left.
Right here?
Bottom left. Left.
Oh.
Yep.
Right there. Just click it. Okay.
While Carrie's doing this, she has Carl with her.
There you go.
Our technology guru.
Yes. Okay. So basically, I'm going to talk a lot. As the manager of equal employment opportunity, I deal a lot with employment. And basically, so I'm going to just start from there and kind of go with the slideshows and then talk from there. Okay, so this one.
Yeah, you should also be able to use.
Okay. Okay.
There it goes.
Okay, so as the manager of equal employment opportunity, I basically execute the functions of equal opportunity and affirmative action by enforcing Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. So basically, building connections is imperative. Outreach is definitely very important in this role. And I went backwards. Okay, just a second here. Okay, here we go. Okay, so an overview of my discussion is going to entail recruitment, hiring, and retention. So some strategies are, for one, getting to locations where the people are. So a lot of, there's the traditional job and career fairs, but also there's community centers and multicultural centers. Like specifically here, we have a Catholic multicultural center where they have various things, different days of the week. They may have food pantry day, they may have job assistance, but they cater to a certain neighborhood area. So we've gone there, set up mini, MINI, job fairs and talked with folks about employment and offered assistance. We've got the parks. We participated in job and career fairs at parks. We set up a few times. Unfortunately, we got rained out, but actually there's people that don't always have transportation, that aren't always able to come to the traditional job fair. So we've gone to them. And it's been very interesting and fulfilling. We've gone to schools, specifically historical Black colleges and universities. We're in the Midwest. And, excuse me, somebody say?
Jeff?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep, we got it, sorry.
Sure. Okay, so we've gone
And you have
historical.
time. You have time, Carrie.
Oh, good. We've gone to historical Black colleges and universities because we're in the Midwest and we don't have a lot of people of color in Madison. It's been sometimes, so we have 9% to 12%. So we reach out to various colleges. We've gone to high schools. We plant the seed early about positions that we have here and discuss various careers that people can try, because Dane County is so vast and there's so many different departments. We go to technical colleges. There are some people that are getting 2-year degrees or certifications or 1-year diplomas, and we have jobs for them as well. So we like to get out and plant the seeds at our educational institutions. Food pantry locations. Again, it's very interesting to go to different parts of the city of Madison or within Dane County and set up a table with the jobs and have discussions with people that are at food pantry. And not everyone has the stereotypical, the things that someone may think that they're lazy or they don't want to work. Sometimes there's people who have lost jobs jobs. They've been, the factory or the facility that they worked at may have closed down. They may have got a higher paying job and had to take a lower wage paying job, and they're trying to make ends meet. And so going and hearing some of those stories have also been very helpful. And then it's been helpful because people have also come to Dane County and applied for positions after we've talked with them. Reentry fairs. Those are fairs where formerly incarcerated or soon to be released members people are coming and talking to you about jobs. And there's different stories. Some people have felonies, some have misdemeanors, some people, white collar crimes, domestic. And so you meet with them, you hear their story, and you try to see where you could assist them in employment. We have ethnic gender listservs. These are lists where we send information out. We have a Latino list. It's called La Soup. We have a Hmong. We have Wisconsin Women of Color. We have LGBTG lists where it's very important. We need to be able to reach all types of people. People need employment, and we should be able to reach all of them. Again, with locations, all right, professional networking events. We have a Latino Professional Association, Madison Network Black Professionals, Hmong Institute, that's just to name a few. And we have various types. We've actually gone to where there's carpenter, welding, type, and I'm drawing a blank, but people that work with their hands more. Trade shows. And that's very important as well, because we have positions, again, here we have so many departments and various positions. We want to make sure no one is left out. We also have what's non-professional networking events. We have an urban league, which actually we're involved with assisting with the census hiring. We're getting all types of people. We have retirees. We have folks with disabilities, people that really don't want to work a lot, and then some people who are looking for something different to do. But we've held meetings throughout Dane County regarding that. We go to facilities, specific facilities, sometimes healthcare facilities, veterans, museums, and we see LGBTQ veterans, retired, elderly, disabled. Again, facilities that are providing services to various folks that need jobs that we don't always think about in a traditional manner. Next, I want to discuss hiring. So in hiring, it's important to review position descriptions for equitable opportunities, education and experience and skills. Yes.
Excuse me for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, there might be some questions about the recruiting. And the reason I'm pointing this out right here, because that was pretty interesting. Those very unique locations that you were recruiting people from. I mean, I thought that was pretty unique. So, I mean, for instance, when you chose going to the food pantry, the special days that because I think this is really key, talking about the recruiting, because quite often people will have questions about, where do I find them? You're going to some places I never dreamed of, and I don't know about the people online. So do you choose a specific day, say if you're going to the food pantry?
Yes. I actually, what I did was I contacted a community center and other facilities and found out specifically if they had food pantry days or other activities that were working with people that had financial difficulty. And I found out what days and what times, and I actually scheduled it for each side of town. So I went to every side of town. I went north, south, east, and west. And I sat and I set up my information. And we're told we really can't go to people because we may appear intimidating or make people feel some kind of way. So I set up my information, but I speak to people and I made them feel comfortable about coming to me. And a lot would ask, what is it that you have? What do you have? And there were some people who said, I've applied with the county and you guys didn't hire me, so I'm not interested. And I go, well, hey, that might have been one job. That might have been another job, but hey, let me show you what we have. And I would have the current positions that we had available printed off, and we talk about the areas that they were interested in and their skill and or educational set, and then we would just talk about them applying.
Okay.
And so I sought them out. I sought
Right,
them out.
okay.
Mhm.
And my last question, and then I know you have plenty more things that you want to talk about.
Mhm.
I think that sometimes I would never think of going to the food pantry or like going to a shelter because I think it's that bias. We have these preconceived ideas about who will I find there. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And what I'm hearing from you is that those are the kind of things that you need to put aside.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
thinking about diverse community. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Well, I met
Okay.
well, yeah, briefly, I'll tell you, I met a gentleman there who was a father, a single father with his two children, who as per him, because there's two sides to every story, he said that his wife had gambled up all their money. He had worked and would give his wife the bulk of the pay to pay the bills. And he found out they were thousands of dollars in debt. So he filed for divorce, after he found out what she had done. And he tried to get her help, but as per him, it didn't work. And so he filed for divorce. And then she got sick. So he's these mountains of debt already from the gambling and her taking money off the credit cards, but then the extra medical bills. And so this poor man's trying to make ends meet. That's why he's at the food pantry. Not because, and people assume maybe because you're lazy or you don't really want to work. And I have met people who were piling up on a lot of food. Some guy showed pictures of all the food that he had and was bragging. This gentleman, really appeared to be a dad just trying to get food and feed his children. And he was hoping, that he, what I mean? And in fact, he did apply for some jobs within Dane County.
Okay,
And
good,
Fanny,
thank you.
You're welcome.
Fanny and Carrie, I just want to say also that the power of strategic partnerships and going where the talent is and not having any preconceived ideas about who you're going to find and what their talent is. And I love the story that Carrie just told, because there, but for the grace of God, go I. Okay?
Hey,
And so we just don't know what can happen.
Yeah.
Medical bills can wipe you out and take all of your money. And so, but that doesn't mean that you don't have a skill set and that you don't have something to offer.
Absolutely.
So in my experience, I've done very similar work to what Carrie has done in terms of finding different organizations, different community organizations, professional organizations that cater to different ethnic or community groups and working with them to find talent.
Yeah.
But I also agree, Fanny, that that's also where you have to put aside some of your preconceived biases. Okay.
Yes, yes. I know we had great people here today to talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, carry on.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Love the feedback. Now I'm going to discuss a little bit about hiring and reviewing position descriptions for equitable opportunities, education experience and skills pertaining to a position. Not everyone has a master's degree. Not everyone has a bachelor's degree. So we need to really look and see, okay, I may not have had that, maybe I have some education, but I have worked X number of years in a certain field or various fields. Or maybe I went to school, but I raised children and I didn't work for a while, or maybe I want to change careers or whatever. So we really need to look to see, no, not everyone has that higher education, but what skills, what education, and what determination can they bring? And we also look to having equitable pay for bilingual positions. People have stated they've come into positions and have been requested to interpret, but they're not getting the necessary pay. It is very important that people are paid for their services. Assisting people that are disabled with applications, so that and then give them the opportunities to apply and or promote. There's been complaints also where people who are disabled feel they don't have fair opportunity, or they may have to take lower wage paying jobs because people may feel that they're not able to. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you guys see me?
No,
Yes.
no, but I that's okay. We can see your slide. That's good.
Okay. Okay. Again, so that is important as well. In working with the departments, it is imperative. For managerial or M-class positions, as we also call them, for any managerial supervisory position, there is a meeting with our office, the Office for Equity Inclusion, Employee Relations, and DOA, Department of Administration. And we have to look at the position description and decide if there needs to be rewording. For instance, certain positions you may not need a master's degree if you have a bachelor's and X years of experience, or if you really need a bachelor's, or if you have an associate's and you've worked in the field 8 or 10 years. Now, depending, obviously, if you're going to be a medical examiner, that's going to be a little different than if you're going to be a CNA, certified nursing attendant. But we look to see, and there's times that positions have been rewritten. Internships. We're big on internships. Each year, our office, we sponsor a group of interns, and they work in the various departments within Dane County. They have worked at the Sheriff's Department. They've worked at Land and Water. They've worked at our office. It's been a great experience. The feedback has been really good from the students, and they range from ages 18 through 25, and some have actually stayed on. The department has had extra money in their budget and kept a couple of them on. We work with we have a lot of limited term employees, which is very helpful to Dane County because some people don't want to work full time, or some people want to start off as limited term, or LTEs we like to call them, just to kind of get a feel for the type of position or the type for county employment, and then decide if they want to work full time. There's some students that work limited term, which works with their schedule. There are some retirees, so that's something that's been kind of ongoing and very successful within Dane County employment. Regarding promotional opportunities for entry-level and or non-professionals, we're definitely working with departments on that. That has been a little not as consistent as we would like, but we're definitely working on them so that people have the opportunities for various trainings, and hoping that they can move forward. Bilingual tests, we have improved the Spanish bilingual tests, so that because people have different dialects, there's different forms of Spanish. There are people, from Brazil, Spain, Mexico, Puerto Rico. So it's very important to realize that not all people that speak Spanish speak the same type of dialect of Spanish. Any questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. It says, question: when hiring from reentry fair, what about the background check that we need to have from DOH?
Oh, definitely. Well, obviously, the department is responsible for the background. The department that's hiring, they will generally do a background check. Now, there's certain positions that some people may not be able to get. For instance, if you robbed a bank, no, you're not going to get a job over budgets. If you have a history of fighting and beating up people or domestic violence, you're not going to work in healthcare probably. I mean, I'm just trying to there's some jobs that some people aren't going to be able to get, but if you served your time and you've done a crime, you're 18 to 20, 23, and you've done some things, and you're on 35 and you're trying to, it would be important and imperative to look at the past, doing that background check to see what have you done since then. If you've served your time and you maybe gone to some trainings and you stayed out of trouble, you know what I mean? A lot of that is taken into consideration. Does that help?
Yes, I'm assuming, because if not, we'll get another question from that individual.
And
From
then,
that.
I'll just add in here that, this is what people don't tend to take into account, and that's that whole piece of structural racism.
Mm-hmm.
And that starts even when, as early as, pre-K. And that because you've been doing a study on that. And so, what you have found is that the expulsion from school for Black and Brown children, even in early learning, is double or more than for white students. And so you have to think about, when people or children are treated like that from the ages of 3 or 4, and they're going through the system, there's a lot of things that are stacked against them. And so therefore, some people may find themselves doing things that they probably shouldn't have done, but we don't want to hold that against them forever because the system is stacked against them in many ways. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to also add, thank you for adding that. We actually meet with people. We, like I said, we go to reentry fairs. We actually go, my colleague and I, who's a diversity recruitment specialist, we actually go to various trainings. We've partnered with businesses also too that are hiring people that have been incarcerated and helping them build, skills and then offering skills. Yeah, because some, unfortunately, because of their past may not, and a manager may not want to say that, you know what I mean? That's not, but we also want to make sure that they have opportunities because we don't want recidivism. You can't find a job, you know what I mean? You're out there
Yes.
and then you do another crime and end up back incarcerated when, you deserve, the opportunity. But we do make a point. We meet with them in our office. In fact, I've helped quite a few people apply because you have to, with Dane County, you have to apply online. We don't have paper applications. And can you imagine being locked up for a number of years, getting out, and you know what I mean, computers? So it's
Yeah.
it's definitely very important. And so we have our offices open to assisting as well. I mean, physically, as in coming and having people meet with us that have been incarcerated. So, okay. Anything else on that? Any more questions?
No.
Okay. All right. And continuing with the hiring, having diverse interview panels are very important. In fact, I serve on a lot of interview panels, in fact, quite a few from the Sheriff's Department, from the airport, from the zoo. It is actually fulfilling for me as well. But having a diverse interview panel, it's important to be mindful of culture regarding how interviewees articulate their answers, because we all come from various backgrounds. We've had various experiences. So we're going to explain things differently, or maybe not the same as someone should think we should explain. It's important to be mindful of the interviewees that have accents. And I never thought of this until I was on an interview panel last year. And the director of the department stated right before the interview that we have several people that are internal candidates and a few, that are outside, but several have strong accents. Let's be mindful, let's be respectful of them. They're already going to be nervous, and so they may take a while to articulate what they have to say, but we will not hold that against them. And it's important to be mindful of gender-dominated positions. So we have, in male-dominated positions, police officers. In female-dominated positions, it's like social workers, teachers. So we don't write people off if, for instance, a male wants to be a nurse, or if a female wants to be a police officer. It's important to be mindful and not play that. I was on an interview panel where a gentleman flat out said, I want to be a police officer, but don't pair me with some little skinny blonde. There's nothing she can do for me. And I was sitting next to, guess what? A little skinny blonde on the interview panel. And after that gentleman left out, she said, this little skinny blonde wanted to jump across that table and put him in a hold. And, people just have to be mindful of, some of the things that we think. And here's this woman is now, she's a sergeant, no, lieutenant actually. So it's very important. We have to be mindful of, that. With regards to onboarding, it is so important right away to start with effective training and having effective staff to work with. Because if you don't have a person that you can talk with, you're not meshing well, that's going to affect how you train and learn your job. People may not realize that. That's very, very important. And continue follow-up. And one thing that I had been told in a previous position, someone had in one of my experiences, I had been giving a bunch of outdated notes. And I just wasn't making sense. And then I went and met with someone else and I said, these are the notes I have. They don't seem to be adding up. And the person said, yeah, I think they were trying to sabotage you because all of that information is about 4 or 5 years old. We don't do that anymore. And I went and sat with someone and got the information, and then I was able to thrive, in my duties. But it's very important to have effective training, effective staff to work with, and continued follow-up.
And when you say follow up, are you referring to the hiring manager or the immediate supervisor?
I'd say all of it. I can say my previous department, I worked in the district attorney's office, and I had a wonderful boss, actually two, the district attorney at the time, and then the direct supervisor. Both checked on me to make sure I was going, I was going to trainings. They were making sure I understood. They were making sure that, Carrie, is everything okay? Is this, do you need this? Do you need that? And so that was really important. In this particular office, our office is not a very large office, but our director, he has one-on-one. He meets with us right away. Anybody that comes in right away, there's information, there's notes, there's things that you're given, and there's constant follow-up. In other words, you make staff feel welcome, you make them feel valued. And you make them feel you want them. So,
Absolutely.
yes. Any more questions on that?
Well, I have one, and it's probably because it might be a little selfish, because I work in early education.
Sure.
And sometimes, and I've heard personal friends have said, I would rather have a female teacher for my child than a male teacher. And I've had that, and I've had conversations about that. How does a director of a child care center, or how do they combat that type thinking if you've got a client, a parent, says, I don't want a male teaching my child, I'd rather it be a female? So do you have any suggestions around that?
Well, the question is, what if that's the only available teacher? You know what I mean? It's at, is it a, and was there, I guess, it's hard to get personal in someone's personal life. I guess the thing, we need to exposure is very important. Exposure is very important. So I would stress, if possible, and I guess it would depend on the parent as well too, but it's very important that our children are exposed, because for one, we can try to guard them, we can, but again, you know what I mean? I would ask, first I would find out maybe why, if they would feel comfortable sharing why, and then I would kind of, mention maybe what's very important that, there's exposure, and then open door policy. If you feel that something is going to happen to your child, or something is going to, is it that, because I had a friend that had a similar situation, and that was because that she had.
Supposed to come right now. She just started walking. I don't know where she went.
I didn't see her in the hall.
So, can you guys hear me?
Yes. Sorry.
Okay. No, that's fine. She had an experience as a child herself. She had some situation, she'd been molested. And so, but the thing is, it can happen with either sex.
Right.
So that's the thing. You can't, how do you undo someone's thinking if they're kind of stuck with that one? So, mine would be, is there a reason, if they care to share the reason, and if to explain exposure, basically we can't always protect our kids all the time unless you're with them 100%, you know what I mean? And so it's important to have your child be comfortable talking to you about experiences and things that, you know what I mean, that for instance, come and share what happened at school today. Instead of having a fear of this teacher, like, what did we learn today? What did we talk about? What friends did I make? Because, you know what I mean? Because inadvertently, a parent can take that fear and put it on their child.
And Sydney and Carrie, I'd just like to add something. I know you mentioned earlier that I work for a large staffing agency. And so we had a client who called in to one of our branches and said that they only wanted Asian women working on their assembly line. So of course, I see your face, Penny. So of course we were like, okay. And so as Carrie said, we had to ask, what is the reason? And what it turned out is that the workers would be working on very small pieces of equipment. And so what we ended up with is that you need people with good manual dexterity, no matter who they are. And that's what we ended up sending to this client. So asking that why, as Carrie said, is very important.
Yeah, it's a big difference. It's interesting because I know in growing up in my family, it was preferred that you have a female teacher, just because we had a lot of female teachers in our family. But my favorite teachers were two male teachers. So interestingly enough, I would have missed out had I not been able to have had those teachers. You know, I learned my best
Yeah.
learning came from my third grade teacher and a high school teacher. So yeah, so
We had a comment. It says children need to learn that males are nurturing too, especially for little boys.
yes, yes, that's very important. And the thing is, so you have all female teachers. What are the male teachers going to do? It's like, you know, they need employment. So.
And a lot of students need that male, role model
Yeah.
in their
Oh,
lives.
yes,
Especially if they
absolutely.
don't have it at home.
Exactly.
Absolutely. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Good stuff.
Yes, it is.
Yes. So now I'm going to discuss retention. Again, to retain employees, it's important to have ongoing training, definitely offering mentorship. Some people don't want the mentorship, some have. I definitely have benefited. I had 2 mentors earlier on when I started working for Dane County, and actually later on at the district attorney's office. I worked under a wonderful attorney and learned so much. So I can speak from personal experience at mentors, and I actually mentor several folks myself. Consistency with meetings, and this includes one-on-one meetings and departmental. So one-on-one, our boss generally has weekly one-on-one meetings with us, and those are very helpful because things that are going on, that things that come up, things we have concerns with, they don't, they're not made to be labored or anything, and so we sit with them and we're able to go over, or if there's some concerns he has, he's able to tell us, and then he has actually an open door policy as well. But those meetings are good because I have my bullet points and I'm in there and ready to go, and then I'm ready to hear whatever he has to say or whatever project that I'm being assigned or whatever. And then we have departmental, we have a monthly departmental meeting where, again, we go over current things that are going on within the county, current developments within our department, and then we have the opportunity to discuss any concerns that we have. But then we end it with if there's any movies or books that anyone's have read and they give a recommendation. And it's not uncommon for several of us to get into a big debate about a movie or a debate. You know what I mean? In other words, it ends on a fun note. And we look forward to those. It's a very cohesive group. And providing for a cohesive work environment, which I'm going to lead into that. Leading by example, by showing positive behavior is very important. And this is not only for the supervisor or director or manager, but for the staff themselves. And again, and if you have an issue, I really feel open communication is so important. It's not uncommon, in this type of work that we do, we're dealing with different personalities. We're dealing with different types of things. Someone may be asked to attend a meeting or present, and someone may not. And so it's very important that we maintain our professionalism and talk out and about any concerns that we have. And also in providing a cohesive work environment, we actually have food days here. Every 2 or 3 months, we have a potluck. Sometime, we bring in food or we order in. I think we just ordered Chinese a few weeks ago, and that's over our lunch, and we sit and we just talk about whatever. And that really, again, that is so helpful, I think, to our department. It makes us feel good. I love coming to work. And again, it provides for a cohesive work environment. And opportunities for growth. It is important to take on projects, show that you can do things, and learn from them, working with other people, and then having additional trainings. I attend trainings all the time. A lot are free trainings. There's time, obviously a department is not going to always have a huge budget for everyone to go to the trainings that they would like to all the time. And so we figure out which paid trainings we're going to go to, but then we also seek out, and we're invited to a lot of free trainings. And then I'm also asked to assist, with trainings and facilitations and whatever. And that is very, very helpful. I co-facilitate a lot with my colleague. And so again, I feel that there's been a lot of growth. I've been given various projects that, of course, I went privately and screamed and yelled to my boss when no one was around because I didn't want to do it. And he nicely gave me his smile and a nice way to say, oh, you can do it, which is saying you're going to do it. But, I've learned a lot from that. I've learned and have been able to share. And so I think it's very important to have the opportunities for growth. Any comments, questions?
I have a question.
It says, as professional recruiters, how do you respond to a client that may be promoting discriminatory hiring practices?
Well, for one, you sit and you kind of ask. Well, for me, I'm a conversationalist, so it's not uncommon for me to start a conversation in a way like, okay, so hey, have you, how's the hiring going? How is this going? How's that? And then when someone starts explaining to you, it's kind of like, okay, well, have you thought about hiring, different types of people or different, have you gone to high school? Have you gone to technical colleges? Have you done this and that? And it's important to hear what they have to say. For instance, I'm going to give an example. A person has said that they've had a hard time hiring because they're concerned about how people may be treated in a department, because that when people that are different come in. And then my question was, well, different, we're all different in some kind of way. So explain you're different to me. And I wanted to give that person the opportunity, but they were saying basically, if you're not from a small town and don't have like a rural type background, farming type labor background, maybe you may have a hard time fitting in. And I said, okay, well, this is where we need to make it a learning situation. We need to kind of make it a learning for them to show that you can bring people in from various backgrounds. And then if it gets to where they're just not going to do it, then fortunately, I have to bring in the stats. And when you do know that you need to, at least make that effort to allow people to apply and interview them, not just already have it in your head that you can't, that they can't interview and be hired. And yeah. I can honestly say Dane County, I feel, has been very receptive on that. A lot of people have actually reached out because they were saying we don't, like, for instance, land and water. It's a very big division. But like they said, a lot of people of color, they don't apply. How do we hire someone who does not apply for something? And I thought that was a great question. So my reply was, you know what? You offer limited term positions so that people can get a feel for the type of work. You go to the schools. Let's plant the seeds a little early. Let's let these youth know, middle school, as early as middle school, let them know there's various courses that you can take in horticulture or something that may interest them, or the sciences or something. And then go to technical colleges, go talk. Again, outreach, let people know. And it's like, because I would have never thought about that. And then I went on a tour with one of the managers. I spent about 4 hours with one of the managers who took me all around our county to the various park and facilities. And I saw a female weed cutter, and I just about lost my mind. I was waving to her. I took her picture, and I'm like, oh my God, you inspired me. She was like, really? I do? I'm like, absolutely. I had no idea. So a lot of times, we don't know these things until we know these things. Yeah. So it's important to get outreach is so imperative. I don't think people realize that.
And I would agree, Fanny and Carrie, and I would just add that I read somewhere that FIT, F-I-T, is the new discrimination. And that a lot of managers use that to say, this person won't fit in. And when you try to drill down and kind of figure out, what does that really mean? Mm-hmm. It's just a way of, quite frankly, not being inclusive. Mm-hmm. And so, it's important to think that maybe everyone may not fit in the same way, but they have value and they can contribute to you.
Exactly. I think it's really important that we bring people with different, diverse backgrounds, because that's how you learn. That's how you grow. You learn from other people. You know how many recipes I've gotten from people over the years? I had rhubarb pie, I think, when I was about 23. The first time I ever had it, it was from a coworker. At first, I go, you got to be joking. That looks green. I'm not touching that. And she says, I insist you have a piece. And I had a piece, and I ended up eating half the lady's pie. I was like, oh God, I was kind of embarrassed. And she said, no, that's a compliment. That's a compliment. I mean, I've learned so many, I've given recipes that this is just from coworkers. So I don't think people realize how much you can learn from other people. You know what I mean? Just giving someone a chance. And in employment, again, I've learned a lot from people, various things that I've never thought about doing. So, okay. Any more comments, questions?
Yes, it says, speaking of it, what are your thoughts on the predictive index?
Speaking of fit.
Oh, fit, sorry.
I'm sorry, say that part again.
Speaking of fit, what are your thoughts on the predictive index?
Well, the productive index, I think it's very, very important for one, if someone gets hired in a department or a unit or whatever, they should definitely have a go-to person. They should be able to talk about how they're fitting in. And if they're not made to fit in, basically the hiring manager or whomever needs to be held accountable to clearly explain why. And if this is happening a lot in these departments, we definitely will have the numbers. There's going to be a report to show. You can pull the reports and show. So someone's going to have to be accountable for explaining. They're going to have to explain why, what's going on. All these people don't fit in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
None of these people fit in. No, it's definitely about accountability. Then you need to continue. You need to explain then after this percentage of people have applied or something or have interviewed and they're not being hired, then that falls on the hiring manager, supervisor to explain. And that person may not be fit for their job. You know.
And I think, something that I had mentioned to Fanny the other day is I was talking to someone from a large global organization, and they were looking at the millennials in their organization and how to develop them more, because they had kind of the next generation who was good at what they do and they just stayed around. And so they were talking about doing cross-cultural, not even cross-cultural, but cross-departmental training and internships and workshops. And so they talked about using, I'm trying to think of exactly what they called it, but it was kind of like what had been successful for people in the past, okay, in terms of going into that department. And I said, well, maybe we need to look at something a little bit differently. People can learn the technical skills, but there are some things that you can't teach. And those are things like, being inclusive, being open, etc. And so it was really about working with the managers to say, we have people who have these success factors, okay, that we can move to your department. You can have some of these ace players teach them the technical skills. But so very often, managers are like, if they don't have the technical skills specifically that I need, this person won't be considered. So it's really kind of looking at skill set from a different perspective as well.
Excellent. Very good point. Good point. Yeah, I think I think it's very, very important for leadership. It's definitely important to lead. I used to lead a unit in the district attorney's office, and I had the most diverse unit in the district attorney's office. In fact, someone nicknamed us the melting pot group. And we literally had pretty much everyone of every ethnicity. And it was just really interesting. Again, the various things that I learned from them, but just having the opportunity, 1 year, someone brought me in ground corn. She was Native American. And that was a big thing that they liked. They heated ground corn. Never had it before, with butter and milk. Mm-hmm. Brought it in it was for a potluck. Had never had. I mean, that's just a few of the things. But we made a point. We had days, we had lunches, and we would go to various ethnic restaurants that someone chose purposely. And so we ate at Indian, at African, at restaurants. We ate at Asian restaurants. And this is leading by example. I wanted to have a fulfilling department. I wanted the staff that worked under me to feel good about it, and I wanted them to know they were appreciated.
Yeah.
And it was really important again. And when and all my staff, interestingly enough, all promoted up under me. I gave them lots of projects. I would make sure that they were able to attend trainings. When they had situations, I followed up. And each one to this day, we still do lunch. We still get together. One, in fact, when she was leaving the department, said I was her hero.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important. It made me feel good. I felt that I had some type of impact on someone's life, and it was purposeful because I did want to impact their life in a good way.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. So that's it. Apparently that's it. Do you have any questions? I actually crammed a lot in. I could go a lot longer, but I know we had time. It's still time sensitive here, and so I put in I felt was most important to discuss with you, ladies. And I really appreciate, first of all, before if anyone has any questions, I want to say it was great, a great experience. Hearing the questions, I've gotten some more ideas just from hearing the feedback from you guys. So that's been awesome. So any questions?
Wonderful. Any questions from anyone? How about you, Lois? You have anything else you want to add?
Well, I just want to add something interesting that from a conversation I had with someone yesterday. And this is really talking about the whole retention piece. And so there's a saying that people leave managers, not companies, but I don't think that's true. Because if you don't have an inclusive environment, people will leave your company. And so apparently in this organization, there are leadership calls where different leaders have the opportunity to share about their experiences, how they've worked their way up to where they are, and to give advice and tips to managers who are coming up in the organization. And so the individual was telling me about a leadership call that he was on last week with a Hispanic female in the engineering department. And that throughout the call, there were multiple requests for people to put their phone on mute, but it wasn't done. And unfortunately, they didn't have the capability to kind of mute everybody themselves. And so they found that it was very disrespectful to have different conversations going on in the background, to have, other phone calls going on, etc. And they felt it was because this person was a person of color. And they compared it to other leadership calls that they were on where you could hear a pin drop. And so these are things that people notice. These are those microaggressions, Fanny, that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And these are those things that happen that people do notice, and it makes a difference. And so that's something also to be very mindful about within your organization. I also worked for an entertainment company years ago, and to the CEO's credit, he brought in a number of very high-ranking African-American women to work in the organization. And I would say that within a year, they were all gone because unfortunately, the organizational readiness wasn't there. So you also have to be mindful about your organization's culture, your organization's policies. This is where, having that buddy, or having someone who's been with the organization to say, this is how it works here, this is how it doesn't work here, whatever. But that's what's very important as well. So it was a well-intentioned thing to do, but unfortunately, the organization wasn't ready. And so it's difficult to really kind of take that step back to say, is my organization ready? But that's really what needs to be done as a starting point.
Oh, very good point. Very good points. And the thing is, with Dane County, we have over 3,000 employees, and there's various divisions and departments within the divisions. And so the reports that we review are very helpful in looking. And like, for instance, our highway department, our human service department, they're huge. We wouldn't compare them to our planning department that has, 25, 30 people. And so we're looking at department by department, and each department has had to submit an equity plan to our director. And some submitted one and they resubmitted it. They found other ways, other things they wanted to add, and that's been received pretty well. Mm-hmm. And the county executive made it mandatory.
Mm-hmm. So who was responsible for developing the equity plan? Because that sounds wonderful, even if you're an organization of 20, or to at least have some sort of equity plan. Pardon?
The county executive and the county board supervisors in conjunction both decided on it. And our office, specifically West Parkman, my director, made sure that it is getting implemented. And so our office is responsible for that. for making sure that they are turned in and that they are basically, you can't get away without submitting one.
Okay.
You can't. Yeah. So
I have a question for both of you. What about language on job postings and that sort of thing? Let me finish. I'm an introvert. So
No, you're
some
not.
like
some
really?
people find it hard to believe, but honestly, I am a true introvert to the bone.
Okay.
But here's the thing. I see, and I'm just speaking, not that I'm looking, I am very content. But if I was looking for a job and it had something on there, like you're going to be out in front of people all the time and that sort of thing, that job may not require a person to be out in front of a group of people all the time. So as an introvert, I'm just using this as an example. There could be so many other examples I could use. But as an introvert, that may be a turnoff for me, for someone, because that's a difference, like race and gender, that's a difference. So, I mean, should you have, like you have a panel, diverse panel of interviewers, should you also have a panel of people who help put together the job description?
Absolutely. And again, it's important to note, let's say if you're going to be out in front of people, what is the percentage that you'd be out in front of people? As opposed to, are you going to be out in front of people 50% of the time, 10% of the time? You know what I mean? I think it would be important to state how much, because if you have, it's 10% and it's once a month for 10 minutes or 5 minutes, it makes a big difference if you're constantly out there. It makes that in itself, that could be something that's put in. And I've seen that in job descriptions where a percentage, there's kind of a breakdown of what your duties are. Does that help? You know what I mean? So.
Absolutely.
And I absolutely agree with that as well. And I just want to mention one other thing, because I was recently interviewed for Newsday, which is the Long Island, Queens, New York newspaper. And they were talking about appearance and natural hair.
Oh, good. That's a good one.
And I have had people ask me, I'm going on interviews, should I straighten my hair and then go back to my natural hair when I get the job? And what I've said is no, because if they wouldn't accept you because of natural hair, it's probably not a place where you want to work. But unfortunately, appearance is another whole diversity and inclusion issue about hairstyle, hair wrappings, things like that.
Yes.
And so that's another thing. It's all about education and awareness. And, we cannot stop training people and talking to people. And I really want to say, Carrie, just having food and getting together with people just to talk about stuff, is really, really important, because there's all these things that can get in the way that people don't really talk about.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Wow. We have 3 minutes, people. Are there any questions out there, any burning questions that people have? Because we're getting ready. Any final thought as everybody's thinking about a question they might have? Final thought from you, Carrie, and a final thought from you, Lois. People are gathering their questions together.
I think outreach is so important. Being open-minded. I was just followed around the store just last night. I left the gym and I had an extra pair of jogging pants on over my clothes and a big coat and this big crazy hat. Because I'm trying to keep warm. I don't know, you were saying it was 30 degrees before. We're about 12 degrees here. And so coming out of the gym, I like to be bundled. I was followed around the store. I was followed around. My husband and I have come out of restaurants. We've eaten with a white couple. Great friends. We eat and we left a restaurant. We were followed out and asked, did we pay? We just paid. We had paid, they paid their bill. We paid ours. We were followed. And we said, oh, absolutely. Here's the receipt. And the couple we were with, very classy couple, said, okay, are you going to ask us the same thing? And they go, well, we saw you paid. And they said, well, if you saw us pay, then you would have seen them pay because they paid the same time we did.
Hmm.
And they said, we won't be coming back here again. And I said, well, I will. I like the fish fry. I just don't want them being my waiter. But I mean, you know what I mean? And then later they called us and said, we're really sorry for you. My husband said, no, welcome to our world.
Mm.
We're used to it, but I don't want that person to wait because I'm not going to hold it against the restaurant because of that person's actions. That's just how I am. But you know what I mean. But so it's being open-minded, definitely being open-minded, and definitely though, just again, but speaking out as well too when you need to be. And I want to talk when you mentioned about the natural hair and that exactly be the you that you're going to be. You go in there
Yes.
being you. That's what I wanted to add to that. So.
Yep. And the last thing that I'll add, Fanny, because I know we have like 30 seconds or less, but that you did mention the organization Raising Voices that I do some work with, and the work is called the Anti-Racism Project. And if anyone is interested in finding out more about that, it's really a lot of education about how racism developed in this country and what are some things that we can do to break down some of those barriers. So I just wanted to offer that up. And thank you, Fanny. And it's been a pleasure meeting you, Carrie.
Oh, you as well. Thank you. You guys have a great rest of the day and stay warmer than what we are here. Okay.
I just want to thank these great presenters. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Lois. You was just absolutely fabulous.
Oh.
And I'm quoting someone else said the same thing. This has been fabulous with 3 exclamation marks.
And thank you. And I want to give definitely a shout out to Carl, who's been here, my ride or die buddy here. He has saved my sanity. His man is.
You rock, Carl. You rock. I want everybody else to have the best day ever. I'd like for Carrie to share her PowerPoint, and if she can, and and when she does, Mariah is going to make sure that all of you receive a copy of it and a link to our recording.
Okay.
Thank you all so very much, and keep watching your emails for our January 2020, believe it or not, Learning Cafe. Have the best day ever, and keep thinking open-minded.
Absolutely. And outreach.
Yeah.
Outreach.
Okay.
Outreach.
Outreach.
Unique places. Unique places. Thank you.
Thank you.